Who's a new attack this week? A shark attack.
Hello and welcome to another bad movie review. This time we're looking at Shark Exorcist 2, Unholy Waters. This came out around 2024 and runs about 70 minutes. It was directed by no-budget and B-movie legend Donald Farmer. It was written by Donald Farmer and Jessa Flux. It stars Claude D. Miles, Angel Nichole Bradford, Jessa Flux, Adam Freeman, Roni Jonah, Steve Guynn, Christy Moritz, Kimberly Lynn Cole, Joe Casterline, and a special appearance by Fallon Maressa. So we start off with some intentionally aged footage that I guess is supposed to be a flashback. And we actually see a nun in a church in a Donald Farmer film. It's kind of amazing after the last couple that we've seen. So we learn that the nun had a baby and that didn't go real well. And the baby ended up in the lake as a sacrifice to Satan because the nun was angry at God. So she apparently summoned a shark. Now this is a little convoluted because it's hard to tell if they're referencing the first movie there or not. At any rate, we see Sister Jean talking to Father Daniel, who is supposedly the brother of Father Michael from the first movie, but there's no mention of Father Michael's other brother who died and set him on his path to fighting demon-possessed sharks. But Father Daniel says that his brother was weak and not strong with the Lord because he failed to exorcise the beast. Now, he has heard of a new shark attack and that he is going to go check it out. And he sort of pops up here and there from there on out in the film. It really doesn't focus on him too much, but we do see Sister Anne, who picks up a hitchhiker named Frank, and she gives him an herbal tea to drink, and he immediately passes out, and that's when we find out she is the sister of the nun from the beginning of the movie, possibly the nun in the last movie, it's a little unclear, and she's now a servant of the devil. So of course she is driving her Kia Soul to sacrifice Frank. Somebody witnesses it and she magically teleports behind them and stabs them. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I'm not sure, was there a metaphor there in the Kia Soul, or is that just the vehicle they had on hand at the time? I don't know. I don't know if that's subtext or not. Then we see some people that are going to go zip lining. Only one of them actually zip lines, and they zip line with this creepy dude who just sort of appears, and he makes another appearance later in the film. We do get a lesbian kiss, and that's as close as we're getting to nudity, you guys. But a woman does get saved by Father Daniel. Sister Anne then shows up to stare at her through the window, and with some sort of vampiric hypno-gaze ability, she lures this woman outside, and then there's some chanting, and then a portal opens up in the sky and a shark descends and eats her, because apparently the shark is capable of going through time and space. They never really make good use of that. Like, the shark didn't appear in revolutionary America and wearing a powdered wig and a red coat, because that would have been awesome. I would watch Red Coat Shark Attack. There's a $1,000 idea for somebody. But now it can teleport, I guess. Whatever. You never see any fins in the water in the regular version of this movie, because there are two versions. There's one with the somewhat upgraded special effects, that's the regular feature, and on the DVD there's an alternate version with very similar special effects, but they're a little downgraded, less flames, less eye glow, that sort of thing. So I would say it is an upgrade to watch the regular version, because there's all these cool flames and portals and stuff, but the original version wasn't that much different, and they showed fins in the water. Like, we get all this B-roll of the beach, but they don't put in any fins. There's no real warning that there's sharks everywhere. So that was a little weird to not see any fins at all in a shark movie. But no one seemed to notice this giant orange fiery portal open in the sky, so I guess that was a thing. And much like the box art, there are a lot of lies in this, because the box art has the priest on a boat, and there's no boat in this. He doesn't get on a boat, not even once. He's barely even on the beach. And there's definitely no cool cool looking helicopter in this movie, like at all, which was really disappointing. And the shark isn't nearly that big. In fact, the shark is somewhat inconsistent on its size, because it apparently can go to the shallow waters to kill all these people without ever being noticed. It's a great white, and you don't see it coming in the shallow water. Then we go over to meet Claude, who hired this chick Casey to be a party dancer for his party of one, which isn't creepy at all, but it's her first time dancing, and she sort of tricks him into playing a party game where they name movies and she wins, so he has to take her to Destin Beach, which I believe is in Florida, and I think they're in Kentucky or Tennessee. His license plate says Kentucky, but the movie says that it was filmed in Tennessee, so you make up your own mind on that one. So instead, he's a bit of a cheapskate and just drives to a different beach that's closer, but it's the murder beach where all the shark killings have happened. Claude is played by Claude Miles, who was also in Bigfoot Exorcist, also with Jessa Flux, who plays Casey. Now, for the first time, they're actually in a scene together, unlike Bigfoot Exorcist, and there is a reference to rosé wine, because they go Krogering and pick up wine, and first one she grabs is a rosé, which I don't know if that's an homage to Bigfoot Exorcist, or the scene in Bigfoot Exorcist is an homage to this one, but I think this is the newer film. But it was nice to see them both in the same scene for once. But then we get Jessa Flux talking to someone named Jessica, who is obviously not in the same area, much less the same time of day, because the sun is clearly on its way down. It's on the side of Casey's face, whereas the other scene is clearly overcast and there's no sun at all, and there's different building in the background. So I guess you just kind of have to go with that one. And we never see that lady again. She just she wandered off and was never seen or heard from again. And much like the last movie, there's not an actual exorcism in this film. There's a priest who holds a cross up and says, "Be gone," and that's about it. But there's no actual exorcisms. So I was really disappointed in that. Plus, the distinct lack of nudity really hurt this movie because it started to drag in parts. And I think it was mostly due to the excessive use of B-roll in scenes that should have been edited down a little bit. I think if they had done the B-roll with the water and shown fins in the water and had some of the music, which was pretty solid, playing through those scenes, it probably would have built the tension a little better and been much more tolerable, but they just kind of blew that opportunity. Now, this movie did have a budget of about $100,000 according to IMDb, but you really wouldn't know that. Now, even Nancy Chase reappears in this one. I think her and one of the nuns are the only two from the original cast, but Nancy Chase doesn't show up till the very end of the movie, and I thought she died in the first one, so I don't really know what that was about. There's definitely a lot of inconsistencies between the first movie and this one, although this was a far superior film. And I have to say, this one actually had some funnier moments and some much more quotable lines. And although the first one was pretty flawed, it did have some moments, and it did have some good B-movie actors. This one also had some pretty good B-movie acting in it. And I thought the best scene was the one near the very end of the film when the credits are going, when you get this fake PSA from Fallon. That was actually pretty funny, and I thought that was really well done. So I had no problem with that, but this movie is definitely not going to be for everybody. These death scenes aren't particularly gory, and they're very, very brief, much like the first one. So that didn't really bother me. That was fairly consistent, and the body count being 7 was, reasonable for a horror film, but it just wasn't particularly scary. I did think it was a pretty fun movie, but it's absolutely only going to be for the diehards that like no budget movies. And I think that a lot of opportunities for tension building were kind of lost on here because there was extra B-roll and extra downtime where people are talking. The whole scenes with Casey and Claude probably should have been cut down, although I thought their interactions were very natural and pretty well done. So I think everybody had pretty good interactions and it looked very natural. People were pretty comfortable around each other. Obviously, the cinematographer knew how to do some shots. There's some pretty good shots at the aquarium, although that scene could have been cut out entirely. It was just padding for the film. But there was some drone footage in this one, and I thought that was a good addition. But overall, I don't think this is going to be for even moderate B-movie fans. This is definitely going to be more for die-hard B-movie fans and fans of really low-budget movies. So for the general audiences, I would say this is probably going to be a miss, and they're going to hate this film, and they're not really going to get what they were going for here, but I think the complete lack of like an exorcism scene hurt this movie the most. If they had actually had the priest on a boat screaming at a green screen or something, then I think the movie would have actually had a much better resolution, even if the priest was killed in the process. But the fact there is no big exorcism scene really makes the movie title incredibly misleading. It should have been called Devil Shark, because that's what Nancy Chase calls it, I believe, in the film, and that probably would have been a little less conflated and set expectations a bit more realistically. So if they do a third one of these, which I kind of hope they do, I hope there's actually a scene with a priest in a boat. I don't care if it's filmed in someone's garage in front of a green screen, but there has to be a boat with some water splashing around and a really big CGI shark with glowing eyes trying to chomp him. I don't even care if they recreate the scene from The Exorcist where the shark is strapped to a bed and it spits pea soup on someone. Actually, that probably would have added to the film quite a bit. But this was definitely an improvement over the last movie, so I will give this a recommendation only to people that really, really like no-budget films. If you like Sharkenstein, you'll probably like this one. Not quite as much, but it'll be in there. It definitely has some good scenes, and it's an absolutely solid improvement over the previous one, but it's still way too weak with no exorcism scene. At least the first one had the beginnings of an exorcism scene. But if you're gonna watch this, definitely pick up the DVD copy so you can see the alternate version too, which actually has some scenes they probably should have left in, with the fins going around in the water. Again, I think that was a major mistake to cut that out. So this one, again, is only for the diehards, not for casuals, and definitely not for general audiences. But that's gonna do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.